300 years after the Enlightenment. We still have to be here having a fucking rally for the obvious. At least that's what I thought. But actually I had an experience recently that kind of changed my take on a lot of this sort of stuff. And I want to share it to you because I'm not going to be doing some of the more sort of God-bashing stuff that I used to do because this thing happened, right? I'll tell you because I think you deserve an explanation for why I'm not doing songs about irreligious songs anymore. I'm just enjoying the silence. So what happened? This is what happened, right? True story. This is an entirely true story. I was in Melbourne, in Australia, in Victoria, down the southeast of Melbourne. Yeah, Melbourne. Come on. Why Australians aren't meant to yell when they hear geography they recognise. That's an American habit. Don't yell just because you recognise the geography. No, do. Melbourne. I was in Melbourne and I was doing a gig in a bar, in a small bar, and I was standing there after the gig with a small group of comedians, and I noticed this bloke down the end of the bar, very striking bloke he was. He was about 6'2", one of these kind of bronzed Aussie guys, shirt open down to about here, hairless and tanned guy he was. But I also noticed him because hanging around his neck, lying against his tanned, hairless chest on the end of a quite prominent silver chain, was a quite prominent silver cross. You know, the kind of cross you might wear if you're a fan of intersections. Or the lowercase letter T. But probably most commonly if you're a fan of the apparatus upon which first century Romans tortured and put to death thieves and Jewish insurgents. Anyway, he was standing there and he was looking at us, and I could tell he wanted to come over to us. He had that look about him. He was very intense. He was on his own. It was slightly weird, and eventually he came over with his torture equipment flapping against his chest, and he said, "G'day Tim, my name's Sam." His name, it appears, was Sam. And he said, "I'm from Dandenong." Woo! Dandenong, for those who don't know, is an outer suburb in the hills just outside Melbourne in Victoria in Australia. And eventually he got talking and he was talking. He was one of those guys who didn't have a very good understanding of personal space, but he was very passionate, and I respect that. But I could tell he wanted to say something, and eventually he said, "I want to say something." So I was right. And he said, I've always wanted to ask you something because I'm a big fan of your work, and I don't want you to think I'm offended or nothing, because I'm not. But you see, I'm a Christian. That settled that. And he said, "I've always wanted to ask you, because you do a lot of material about God and stuff, but you've never answered for me the fundamental question of why. Why you don't believe in God." And I said, "Well, Sam, I don't believe in God for the same reason that anyone who doesn't believe in a thing doesn't believe in it, because I haven't yet been offered enough evidence to allay my doubts." And he said, "But you don't just go through your whole life only believing things that you got evidence for, do you?" And I said, "Yep." Yeah, that's pretty much how thus far I've managed to wade my way through my tepid existence, yeah. And he said, "What about love?" And I said, "What about love?" And he said, "Do you believe in love?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so, Sam. Yeah, I believe in love. I feel love. I feel loved. Yeah, I believe in love."
Love you, Tim!
And he said, "Aha! You don't have any evidence for love?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I mean, sure. Love without evidence is stalking." So I was going fine, right? And then Sam said this. He told me the story of his mum, an incredible story, and I'll tell you it now as quickly as I can. Apparently Sam's mum in her early 60s had developed a problem with her eyes, and she didn't want to go to the doctor. She didn't like the idea of doctors, but eventually they cajoled her into going, and the GP, the MD, took one look at her eye and said, "You must see a specialist as soon as possible. This is a degenerative eye disorder. If you don't have surgery, you will go blind." And Sam's mum was afraid because she didn't trust doctors, she didn't believe in modern medicine. But Sam and his mum had their church there in the hills, in the Dandenong Ranges outside Melbourne in Victoria in Australia. There was one of these big glass, really popular churches. And it was to their church that they went that Sunday. And apparently the entire packed congregation of some 3,000 people all simultaneously prayed for Sam's mum. And the following Tuesday, when they went to the specialist, there was no sign whatsoever that there'd been anything wrong with her eyes. They were perfectly healthy. She was cured. She'd been healed. And the reason this story had such an impact on me is I try more than anything else to be intellectually honest, you know, with myself and with others. And all I've ever said is I want evidence. And here I was for the first time experiencing a first-person account of what can only be described as a miracle. So I went right on home and I wrote this song. I have an apology to make. I'm afraid I've made a big mistake. I turned my face away from you, Lord. I was too blind to see the light. I was too meek to feel your might. I closed my eyes, I couldn't see the truth, Lord. But then like Saul on the Damascus road, you sent a messenger to me, and so now I've had the truth revealed to me. Please forgive me all those things I said. I'll no longer betray you, Lord. I will pray to you instead, and I will say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I had no idea, but it's suddenly so clear now. I feel such a cynic. How could I have been so dumb? Thank you for displaying how praying works. A particular prayer in a particular church. Thank you, Sam, for the chance to acknowledge this omnipotent ophthalmologist. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I didn't realize that it was so simple, but you showed a great example of just how it can be done. You only need to pray in a particular spot to a particular version of a particular God, and if you pull that off without a hitch, he will fix one eye of one middle-class white bitch. I know in the past my outlook has been limited. I couldn't see examples of where life had been definitive, but I can admit it when the evidence is clear as Sam's mum's new cornea. That's extremely clear. Thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mum. I have to admit that in the past I have been skeptical, but Sam described this miracle and I am overcome. How fitting that the sighting of a sight-based intervention should open my eyes to this exciting new dimension. It's like someone put an eye chart up in front of me and the top 5 letters say I-C-G-O-D. Thank you, Sam, for showing how my point of view has been so flawed. I assumed there was no God at all, but now I see that cynical. It's simply that his interests aren't particularly broad. He's largely undiverted by the starving masses or the inequality between the various classes. He gives out strictly limited passes, redeemable for surgery or 2-for-1 glasses. I feel so shocking for historically mocking. Yeah, your interests are clearly confined to the ocular. I bet given the chance you'd eschew the divine and start a little business selling contacts online. Fuck me, Sam, what are the odds that of history's endless parade of gods and the God you just happen to be taught to believe in is the actual one? And he digs on healing, but not the AIDS-ridden African nations, nor the victims of the plague, nor the flood-addled Asians, but healthy, privately insured Australians with common and curable lens degeneration. The story of Sam's has but a single explanation, a surgical God who digs on magic operations. No, it couldn't be mistaken, attribution of causation, born of a coincidental temporal correlation, exacerbated by a general lack of education vis-a-vis physics in Sam's parish congregation. It couldn't be that all these pious people are liars. It couldn't be an artifact of confirmation bias or a product of groupthink, a mass delusion, an emperor's new clothes style fear of exclusion. No, it's more likely to be an all-powerful magician than the misdiagnosis of the initial condition, or one one of many cases of spontaneous remission, or a record-keeping glitch by the local physician. They're the only explanation for Sam's mum seeing. They prayed to an all-knowing super being, to the omnipresent master of the universe, and he liked the sound of their muttered verse. So for a bit of a change from his usual stunt of being a sexist, racist, murderous, popped down to Dandenong, and just like that used his powers to heal the cataracts of Sam's mom, of Sam's mom. Oh, thank you, God, for fixing the cataracts of Sam's mom. I didn't realize that it was such a simple thing. I feel such a ding-a-ling, what ignorant scum. Now I understand how prayer can work. A particular prayer in a particular church, in a particular style, with a particular stuff, and for particular problems that are particularly tough, and for particular people, preferably white, and for particular senses, preferably sight. A particular prayer in a particular spot, to a particular version of a particular God. And if you get that right, he just might take a break from giving babies malaria and pop down to your local area to fix the cataracts of your mum. So yeah, no more of that stuff. We are not the crazy ones. That's fucking great, Banner. I don't know, I think we probably are. It's just not about that. Alright.